In our previous episodes, we defined some key terms and concepts related to purpose-based branding. Now we're going to shift from the philosophical to the practical as we consider how to prepare your organization for a purpose-based branding process. Let's use an agricultural analogy to illustrate. Think of your organization's culture as the soil, and what grows out of the soil as your brand. Before you plant a seed, which is in this case an idea, you need to assess the soil's condition. If we leave the soil to itself, weeds take root and sprout with very little effort and with no intention. In the same way, the soil of your organization's culture is already expressing a brand message, though it may not be the message you want. But if we try to plant something in the soil before first dealing with the weeds, whatever we wanted to grow is going to get mangled and mutated by the weeds. The point is, you already have a brand, and you need to understand what it means to your employees and your customers before you attempt to change that meaning. If you assume a blank slate, your current brand baggage will thwart your efforts and inspire deeper levels of ambivalence and cynicism. Assessing your current brand condition can be accomplished through interviews and surveys with representatives of your key audiences. Using someone who is not employed by your organization and who will keep the identities of the interviewees and respondents anonymous is recommended to encourage honest and authentic feedback. Continuing with our analogy, you also need to understand your soil's capability to support growth. Certain farming methods fatigue soil, rendering it sterile and unable to support growth. In the same way, some organizations fatigue their employees and customers with frequent change initiatives, which lead to no discernible changes. So before we initiate a purpose-based branding process, we need to enrich the soil, the organization's culture, so that it will be responsive to the process and to support the outcome. How do we do this? We sell the idea throughout the organization before we start. The people that need to be involved in the process need to understand and appreciate the value of the effort. The purpose-based branding process requires the active engagement of large swaths of the organization to be effective. If the people we ask to be involved do not understand what is at stake, they will ignore our invitations to participate. To them, our process will seem like one more time-consuming abstraction that takes them away from what they need to get done before they clock out. Let me give you an example. When I was designing a purpose-based branding process at a public healthcare system, I met with department leaders and influencers to explain the purpose of the process. I gave them postcard-sized handouts to distribute to their teams so that they could become the face of the effort rather than me. I found out when interdepartmental meetings were scheduled and asked to be added to the agenda so I could make the case there as well. The result was that I recruited these leaders as informed advocates for the process, so that when we began inviting employees to the initial set of focus groups, we received a surprisingly large and enthusiastic response. And it was a response that continued over the course of the 8-month process. By taking the time to make the case for the value of the initiative, we not only dramatically increase our participation rate, but we also increase awareness and ownership of the outcome. Lastly, we need to ensure that our soil will receive the needed resources to foster growth, namely sunlight and water. These elements are analogous to the resources the organization's executives are responsible to distribute. Often good ideas fail to take root because they are starved for resources, be it money, labor, or time. These are precious commodities that executives are entrusted with allocating where they think they will best be used. No organization-wide initiative like purpose-based branding will succeed without executive support. Branding is a powerful business strategy that can dramatically alter the course and fortunes of an organization's business, but it does not scream for attention like quarterly profit and loss statements, or lawsuits, or capital equipment needs. All of these urgencies vie for attention and resources with the development of a cogent brand strategy that results from a purpose-based branding process. So before proceeding with any of the steps we've considered thus far, we need to ensure we have one or more executive champions on board, preferably including the chief executive. But engaging these executive champions at the outset is not enough. We need to update them regularly and keep the purpose and value of the process top of mind. If we do not, short-term urgencies will eclipse the value of the effort and result in the drying up of the resources needed to germinate that seed idea. Let me summarize the steps we need to take to maximize the odds of the success of our purpose-based branding process. First, we need to understand what our brand means to our employees and to our customers and other key audiences before we start. This will also help us to measure progress later. Second, we need to make the case for the value of the effort. We cannot simply assume people will get it. They are busy with many demands for their attention, and so we need to make a clear, concise, and compelling argument for why our organization generally, and each member specifically, needs to be involved from beginning to end. And third, we need to recruit and maintain executive champions who will ensure their process is sufficiently resourced from start to finish. In our next episode, we will overview the steps in the process and explain the goals for each. Now, I have included a link to my blog site, as well as to case studies where you can learn more about the brand purpose approach and our outcomes. If you have learned something that you think is useful, please give us a thumbs up and share with anyone you think might also find this information helpful. And if there's a question that you would like us to answer, or if you have a topic suggestion for a future episode, please add a comment. Thank you so much for watching.